Welcome to another edition of Footprints in American History. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about witnessing Columbine a little closer than anybody else should. Now, I was fortunate. I was not there. I didn't deal with any of that. However, I did see some things with Columbine High School and the massacre there just a little bit closer than most people should. Now, let me explain. 24 years ago today, April 20th, 1999, two students, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris is pretty much the ringleader, went into their high school, Columbine, and they tried to set off some bombs. The bombs didn't go off, so they decided to just start shooting. They were wearing trench coats. They basically were wanting revenge. The story goes is they got bullied a lot. They were angry, and so that was why they decided to get their revenge. Now, first of all, let me just explain one thing, why I do not feel sorry for those two people after they killed themselves. First of all, I know what it's like to be bullied. In junior high school, I got bullied mercilessly for a year and a half in a junior high school I attended. I was an outcast. I was basically just a nerdy kid that wanted to be liked, and these people did not care. This was a working class side of town, and they were ruthless to me. It was awful. So I never wanted to go out there and kill innocent people, and that's exactly what happened in the cases of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Now, they came into the school wearing trench coats and they killed. Unfortunately, that was a day that affected my life in ways that I never expected either. Now, what had happened was I had just moved back to Colorado Springs. I was working a door-to-door sales job, and what happened was we could pretty much work any way we wanted. So I was the one driving, and what happened was I looked at my coworker, a guy named Andre, and I said, "Hey, where do you want to work today?" He didn't care. I said, "Hey, let's go up to Littleton." I had friends in Littleton. I still have friends in Littleton, and I love that area. Now, what happened was we went up there, and what happened was I come out of a store getting a soda, and what happens is I hear my friend tell me that on the radio they're talking about a school shooting, and it turned out that we realized we need to get away from here. If this is something really bad, we ended up driving toward the scene where this all happened. The school's at Pearson Bowles in Littleton. Now, a lot of people did not understand back then with Littleton. They thought that this meant that Colorado was a Wild West state. No, not at all. What it was is that what was significant about Columbine happening was not just the fact that there were murders there, it was the fact of where it happened. Columbine was located in the area you want to live in town. It was the nice neighborhoods. It was the, I saw back then, I saw the Waterboy at the AMC Theater just up the street from that high school. It was a very pleasant area of town. I ate at the Red Robin right next to it. I remember details of that, and so that's why I was so shocked, because it happened in the nicer part of Littleton. So with this happening, it shocked a lot of people. It shocked people across America. I can remember they did a memorial service in Colorado Springs. I was 60 miles away from the scene of the crime when they did a memorial service, and I saw the effect it had on the high school students there. And so it really shocked a lot of people. This was the beginning of truly where the school shootings began. Jonesboro had happened before, but Columbine seemed like it took it to a new level. And what happened from there was that it affected all of Denver. I remember it went on for at least years after that, 4, 5, 7 years easily, where it still affected people. It affected people mentally. It affected just the community, because it took away that sense of security. The area that you expected your kids to be safe was no longer safe, and it was by fellow students on top of that. This wasn't some terrorist from the Middle East coming in there killing them. This was kids that you grew up with. And so it was that kind of effect. Now, I want to tell you some of the details that I saw with this happening. Now, when that went down, like I said, we ended up driving toward where it was. I had no idea at the time. I didn't exactly know the existence of the school back then. I knew where the AMC Theater and that other stuff. But what happened was so we ended up trying to get away from it. We end up driving closer to it, and we get caught in the traffic redirect on Bowles Avenue. And I still remember seeing this big pot-bellied cop doing the redirecting, and there are cars backed up, so it's taking its time to get through. And in the background, in the distance, I'm hearing all these sirens going on. And what it was is that they had to, Littleton was so caught off guard for this. You know, Littleton's not the kind of area that they expect that they have to send in a SWAT team. So this was a makeshift squad team with cops from other precincts and areas, because they just were not expecting this. These cops went in there, they didn't know what they were getting into. They didn't even know. That's why it took so long for them to get into the high school. They didn't know how many shooters there were. They didn't know any of the stuff going on. So it was definitely a nightmare for the police as well. So they get in there, and what happens is here you have all these people that have died, and it was just an awful, awful scene. Now, my friends in Littleton, her parents, my main friend there, her parents had taught in Littleton. Now, they didn't teach in Arapahoe County Jefferson County, where this happened. They actually taught in the city of Littleton, which is, if I remember correctly, Arapahoe County. So what happened was that it didn't matter to me at that point. I knew that I had to find a phone to find out, because my friend's mom taught at a local high school. Came to find out later, yeah, she was fine. She was actually at Bear Creek High School, which was a different school. So I was very relieved to learn that. But what I did learn later, though, is that her parents, my friend's parents, knew Dave Sanders, the teacher who died trying to save students on that day. So this just kind of gives you an idea of the effect it had on people, that friends of mine knew somebody that died in this. Now, I went with this particular friend. Later, we went down to where they had, this guy had built on top of this hill. It's called Clement Park, and they had a hill there, and he put up 15 crosses. Now, 13 people had died, but Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold killed themselves. I basically guess they figured out, hey, we're not getting out of this alive. So what happened was that they killed themselves. This guy from Illinois drove all the way without stopping, erected 15 crosses, including 2 for the killers. A lot of people, I remember, were spitting on those crosses because they were so angry about it. However, he was just trying to make a compassionate statement. He didn't mean to offend anybody. With that, we went there and we saw the crosses, and there was such a somber feeling being in that park just days after the shooting. Matter of fact, those students didn't go back the rest of the year. If I remember correctly, virtually all of them went to Chatfield High School. I'm not sure if any of them went to any other schools, but I know that most of them went to Chatfield High School for the rest of the year, and their lives were shattered because of this. Now, when we're walking through this and seeing these crosses, it's just a somber feeling. One of the students that was really popular was a really pretty girl. She was a junior named Rachel Scott. She drove a little red Honda Accord. If I remember correctly, it was either an Accord or a Civic. And what happened was that about this high off the ground, off of her car, were how high the roses were. So many people loved this girl to see this stack of roses on the trunk, on the hood, on the top of the car. The car was covered with roses, and it was before they had not towed the car out of the lot yet, but it affected so many parents. And sadly, one of the students was a black student. They had said a racist comment to this guy before they killed him, and of course it affected his father so badly, and there was no reason for it. I think they honestly did it just to insult him and throw that little dig in to see if they could cause as much pain as possible. Now, the father of Rachel Scott, he tried to encourage forgiveness and things like that, and he actually did become pretty well known nationally for a while there after that, because of his stance and trying to be much more reasonable about it and not angry and not holding a grudge. Now, I will say this, is that my friend was going to a nearby college in Denver, and while she was there, this was something that really, I never forgot her telling me this. She had a friend in the class whose daughter was at Columbine when all the shooting went on. She heard the gunfire. She was okay, but what happened though was, because it affected her so much mentally, that when they would go into this school, when her mom was taking these classes at night, she would have the mother check around every corner before and say, it's okay, we can go, because she was so worried about it happening again. If that just tells you how much it affected the students. And matter of fact, most people that experienced Columbine, on top of that, They wanted nothing to do with July 4th because when the fireworks came around, the sounds of those firecrackers popping reminded them of gunfire, so most of them did not celebrate July 4th that year. So this just tells you this was definitely a major effect it had on them. And I just want you to pause and take a moment on this 24th anniversary to think about the victims that went through this, and think about just all the other schools. Virginia Tech had a shooter, 34 people died. You think of all these other shootings that have gone on and how tragic they are, and we do need to look at finding a way to keep this from ever happening again. Now, I'm not going to take a stand on gun control or any of that other stuff. That's not the position I'm here to do. I'm simply here just to report the story and see if we can find a way to make our society better and safer at the same time of just promoting ways to have people be able to live healthy and happy lives, that they're not wanting to go out there and get revenge like these two jerks did. Sorry for saying that, but that's how I feel about Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. In the meantime, like and subscribe. Fair winds and following seas. Thank you so much for watching.